You are listening to I Survived the Wild Outdoors podcast, where real outdoors men and women share their heroic tales of survival. I'm your host, Brad Mathewson, and this is their story. Black bear populations and human interactions are increasing in many areas, leading bears to become more accustomed to people as they seek out food. Lee Ann Galante of Pennsylvania was letting her small Pomeranian named Smokey out for a potty break on the evening of March 5th, 2024. The dog immediately started barking, and Lee Ann heard a noise in the direction of the bird feeder. And that's when she saw the silhouettes of 3 bears. In a flash, a large bear came out of the darkness and started chasing Smokey. Can you tell us what happened, Lee Ann?
Yeah, well, I was home. It was a Tuesday evening, and I was. My husband helps out at a dairy farm, so he was out there, and my son was at a trivia night. So it was like 8:30 at night, and I was on my phone up in my bedroom, and Smokey had to go outside. So I got up and went downstairs and opened the back door and to let him out. And we always go out with him day or night because he's little. He's about an 8-9 pound Pomeranian. He's all black, so he kind of, funny enough, he looks like a bear cub. But so we walk out onto the deck, and I hear this awful noise over at the bird feeders. My husband's been feeding the birds. We've lived here for 32 years, and he's, feeding the birds ever since. And I kind of craned my neck to look over to the side of the house, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I see the outline, the silhouette of the 3 bears in my neighbor's maple tree. And I'm like, and so in the meantime, Smokey runs off the deck and he's barking, and, he normally does that anyway. And so, and then all of a sudden I just see out of the darkness, I just see the mommy bear come, and we have a little 3-foot fence around our deck into the yard, to keep, Smokey in.
Yep.
And she just stepped right over that, and Smokey is at the corner where the fence is, and, she started to go after him, and I'm like, I just started screaming like, oh my gosh, Smokey, get in that, so he started to run to the other set of steps off our deck, and she kind of turned and looked at me because I was standing there screaming for the dog, and she started to come my way, and I thought, oh, she'll never come on our deck. So I went to the other set of steps to get Smokey, and that's when she came up behind me, and she pushed me down so hard and so fast that my face hit the cement slab that's, at the bottom of the step of our deck.
Yep.
And I just heard crunch.
Oh.
And I just sat up, and I was like, and the first thing I did was check my teeth because I'm a dental hygienist, and they were still there, and I'm like, so anyway, I kind of then sat up, and then she grabbed the back of my head with her mouth, and she just starts pulling at my hair, and it was just all so quick and so fast. So anyway, she's pulling at the back of my hair, and then all of a sudden she goes after Smokey, and I stood up and I started screaming, and she had him quartered at the gate between our deck and the driveway. And I'm just standing there screaming, Smokey, because, just one bite, she would have ripped him apart. She just would have ripped him apart. And so then she comes back at me, and she pushes me down and starts biting my arm. And she's laying on top of me, and I'm just laying there screaming, someone please help me. And, it's a terrible feeling to know that you're screaming and no one can hear you. That's an awful feeling.
Yep.
And we live in a neighborhood, and the houses are, they're fairly close. It's not super close, but, and we have neighbors behind us, beside us, whatever. And it was before the time change, and, people still had their windows closed or whatever. And, it's, no one heard me. And then, so she's on top of me, biting my arm, and then she must have gotten distracted. It had to have been divine intervention, because she starts running down the steps of the deck, and she goes over the fence into the backyard. And I thought, I didn't know what was going on, and I stood up, and I was, basically laying in front of the back door. And I stood up, and I look, and she's starting to climb up the back of our deck again. She's just like clawing her way up there. And I turn around, and Smokey's at the door to come in. And I was able to open the back door. And you know how you turn around? And I was just like, is she behind me? Am I going to have enough time to get in the door? And it was like, I was almost frozen in fear there. Like, oh my gosh, because then what if she chases me into the house or whatever? It was awful. So, we were able to get in the house, and I crawled across the kitchen floor, and we have a cordless phone beside our refrigerator, and called 911. And, we still have a landline, thank goodness, I guess. And I just, I called 911, and I was like screaming, someone please help me. And there was just so much blood all over blood was just pouring off of me, from my face, from the back of my head. And then there must have been a police officer kind of in our neighborhood. Well, not in our neighborhood, but like in the area, because he was there pretty quickly. And the 911 officer, he was like, can you, crawl to your door and open your front door? So I was like, don't come in the back door. And so I crawled to the entryway, and I opened the front door, and I was like, is the bear going to come in my front door,
Yeah.
And so they were there pretty quickly. And my neighbor across the street, when the police officer came, she came over, and she's the one that wiped up all the blood in my kitchen, most of it. But, it was just, it had to have been like wrong place, wrong time, because now this bear and her cubs had been seen in our neighborhood, like a few weeks before. And how, the neighbors talk, like one of the neighbors texted me, she's like, oh, we had a bear in the neighborhood, and, so-and-so caught it on her Ring camera.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh, that's cool, and then, you kind of watch out at night, and when you let the dog out or whatever, but then time goes on, and you just don't think about it. You just get back into your nightly routine. And I can't tell you how many times I've let dogs out through the years on the deck and never had a problem.
Yeah.
And, she was at the side of her house, at our bird feeders, and it was only, like I said, it was only 8:30 at night. So I always assumed they were more nocturnal. And then, like, everybody's always like, oh, they're more afraid of you than you are of them. But then I've heard, don't come between a mom and her babies. But
yep.
Technically, I wasn't between them. They need to clarify that. Like, we weren't technically between them. And it had to have been like 30 feet or so, from the side of the house to the back of the deck. And and Smokey ran off the deck barking, and, that probably upset her or whatever. And, but she had definitely had more interest in me than she did in Smokey, thank God, because, geez, if she would have gotten hold of him, she would have just ripped him right apart because he's so little. And then at some point when I was at the steps and she had knocked me down, and then Smokey was there and she put her paw on Smokey, and he kind of just went like right underneath her. So that was a good thing. Like she put her paw on his back.
Yeah.
So Smokey did end up with one claw mark on his back. And my son took him to the vet the next day, and they shaved it and gave him the antibiotic, and he was fine, thank God. But whenever Smokey was at the gate and she had him cornered, they were nose to nose at the gate between the deck and the driveway. I was just standing there and I'm screaming, and I'm like, and then she comes after me and, bites my arm and knocks me down. And I'm like, before she knocked me down, I'm just thinking, I can't believe I'm getting attacked. I can't believe this is happening. Yeah. I can't believe I'm getting attacked by a bear. And like, for this one split second, like when I was thinking that, I felt like I almost went somewhere else in my head.
Okay.
It was weird. It was like, and then when she was on top of me and, I'm screaming and she's biting my arm and I'm just laying there on my back and I'm thinking, how am I going to get out of this one? Like it was just all like so fast and just so much going on. I was just like, oh my God, I didn't have time to think. And, I'm laying there and I'm thinking, how am I going to get out of this? And then I was laying there too. And I'm like, I didn't think this is how my life was going to end. Like, I didn't feel it. I don't know what. Now, maybe at that point, I didn't feel like, this is how it ends for me. And, it's just like something that kind of comes over you like, well, is this how it ends? And then, I didn't feel like it. Like that was how it ends.
Yeah.
And then when she was climbing up, she was coming back for more when she was kind of climbing up the back of the deck. I mean, yeah, she was absolutely not happy. And like I said, she did not like me. And, yeah, she was coming back for more. She wanted, it was just obvious, like on her face and her claws and whatever. And, I just looked the other day, I'm like, I wonder if those claw marks are still on my back. I have these, claw marks on my back and they're still there. I mean, they've, faded a little bit, yep, but they're still there. And, so after the police officer came, and God love him, I was just a maniac. I was a mess. I was hysterical and, blood. I mean, it looked like a crime scene. It really did. And I was, like I said, I was just a maniac. I was hysterical. And then my neighbor was there. She came over and, God love her too. And I'm like, oh, Smokey, where's Smokey? Because as soon as we got in the house, he disappeared. He ran upstairs to one of the bedrooms and was hiding. And
he had enough.
I just kept screaming, "Oh, Smokey!" And go check on Smokey. And so the ambulance finally came, and I don't even remember how I got onto the stretcher or whatever. I remember they wrapped my head, like the bandages around your head, like you're a a Civil War soldier. And so I'm in the ambulance, and I was just like, whatever pain pills or pain medicine they had, I was taking. My head hurt so bad, and I couldn't rest my head back on the bed in the ambulance because the back of my head, and I'm just like, even my neighbor, and when the cop came, and I were like, don't tell me, I don't want to know what the back of my head looks like. I don't want to know. Don't tell me. And so, I'm in the ambulance, and everybody was just so nice. And when I had gone out to the ambulance, I remember seeing all the emergency vehicles out there. I mean, it was just like everybody showed up for that. And I got to our local hospital in Butler, and they, here again, they were very nice. And I'm just like, knock me out. Cause I didn't, like I said, I didn't want to know.
Yeah.
Don't tell me. I don't want to feel anything, so they did. And I know a couple of people at the hospital, and they were there, and they were very nice. And, so at our local hospital, they started stapling the back of my head, just putting a couple staples in, and they didn't even numb me up because at that point the back of my head was numb. I couldn't feel anything, and so then they shipped me down to Allegheny General Hospital, which is a hospital in Pittsburgh, and so that night they spent the night basically stapling the back of my head. Like every time they'd come in, they'd be like, "Oh, here's more," and my scalp started to rip away from the back of my ear. Oof. So they put like stitches back there. They put stitches there, and then they didn't have to shave my head or anything. And my hair's short anyway, but they didn't have to shave it. They just kept looking in there and stapling and whatever. And then they put some stitches in my arm where the bite, some of the bite. Now there was a couple that were deeper, so they didn't stitch those. They said it was better to leave those open. Now, so they did that. The entire night was spent, like, I swear, stapling my head. And they had to change my gown like 3 or 4 times because it was just drenched in blood, just throughout the night, because it was just so much bleeding. And everybody says that head injuries bleed a lot or whatever, and which I guess I never really thought of that until that time. But and then my family came and whatever, and so that and now I was off work for 3 weeks, and the following week I was only in the hospital for that night and then another night.
Okay.
And then they sent me home, and then visiting nurses, of course, they were fantastic. But I had so much dried blood in my hair that, it took, and then in the staples in the back of my head, it was just crusted in the back of my hair. And my hair was like, it was, highlighted red from all the blood. And that took me a couple of days to get that out of my hair. And then the visiting nurses would like try to get the crusty blood away from the staples and things like that. They were all nice, but and oh boy, so many people sent cards. We had people sent food. Like we had 2 weeks almost of meals every night, and my husband and my son have never eaten so good in their lives. They had a good meal every night, and they're not used to that. So Yeah, but oh geez, the cards I got and flowers, just everybody and messages and just people were just so concerned and I was just amazed at how nice people were. You have those few people that are mean,
Yep.
On social media, but yeah, everybody's very nice and no, the back of my head, that's like I still have a lump. It's a hematoma, okay? And then, there's all kind of scars and whatever back there, but I had a couple bald spots back there. But I think that's growing, my hair's growing in back there, but it's still tender. Like for a long time, boy, did I have a hard time getting comfortable to go to sleep. Like I couldn't lay on my face because my face hurt. My face was so bruised when I came home. And it's funny because they didn't show up right away in the hospital, the bruising. That showed up like, when I got home and my face was so swollen and bruised and whatever. And then, the back of my head hurt and it's still tender and like, it's a low grade, like a low grade hurt, all day long. It's nothing that you have to take a pain pill or even an Advil or Tylenol for. It's just, it's there. And then like parts of it are numb, back of my head, and it's still tender actually to fix my hair too. I would imagine that's nerve damage or whatever. And I'm sure it'll come around. And my arm is still sore, where she bit me. Now there's like just scars, like little scars there. You should have seen my arm. It was so black and blue, clear down to my wrist. And she bit the top of my arm, my upper arm. And but my arm's still sore. And it's funny, I'll get sharp pains in it, like a stabbing pain. And then, if I brush up against something or, something, it hurts. But it's like one of those low grade constant hurts too. But you know what? And I know I sound like I'm complaining a lot.
No.
But the stuff that got me through this and what I kept thinking the entire time is I can get over this. This I can get over, right? I'm still alive. This is just minor stuff. There's people out there that have things that they can't get over.
Yeah.
And I just kept thinking, like, I was just like, oh, I can get over this. This is fine. I'll get over it. But like people have things that they can't get over and will never get over. And I'm just thankful that, the injuries were not major. I wouldn't say it was major. It was minor. Well, I guess. I mean, compared to what other people have, And so when I was getting attacked by the bear, before she knocked me down and bit my arm, when I was thinking, I can't believe this is happening. And then another thought went through my mind. I'm like, I had a trip to Italy planned in April. And I'm like, I'm not going to get to go to Italy. And it was a family. My son was going and me, and we were going with my husband's cousins because they're from Italy. And it was just a big cousin trip. And my husband was staying home with the dog. And, that really helped me get through everything. The doctors, they scheduled my surgery for my face the following week because they knew I had this trip planned.
Okay.
They got me in right away a week later. And like I said, well, what happened when she pushed me down and I crushed my face was My nose was crushed. They said it was like in little pieces, not to mention my sinuses, like my upper jaw sinus area. So, you know, they had to put those plates in and stuff like that. So, you know, they were able to get me in a week later for that. And I only spent one night in the hospital there. And, I was on a no chew diet for 7 weeks. I couldn't, it was just, they don't call it so much a liquid diet as no chewing.
Wow.
So, yeah, so I went to Italy without being able to chew. But I was able, if you cut stuff up small enough, you know, or mush stuff
just
enough,
swallow
you can get it. Yeah, you can still get it down, you know. So, in my friend at work, she said, when I went to Italy, well, I thought, oh, I'll just believe it when I see it, you know. I just couldn't believe I was still able to go. And I'm very blessed that I was able to go. And my friend, she saw my pictures, you know, on Facebook that I posted from Italy, and she said that she could tell each day that I kept feeling, you know, I was feeling better. Because at first, all the scar tissue on the inside of my upper lip made it very hard to smile or, you know, stuff like that because it was very tight. And, you know, it wasn't comfortable because of the scar tissue. And it's still, my face is still weird. It's numb, it's tingly, it's, you know, whatever. It's coming along, but, you know, now I can smile again. So, yeah, I worked it out enough where I could smile. And she said that, you know, each day she could tell I was feeling better each day as the trip went on. So, and so that was a once-in-a-life trip, and I was very thankful I was still able to go.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I ask you, so did the local DNR, did they ever come and interview you at all about this and ask about the bear
did.
Or put traps out for the bear?
Well, that's so whenever you can't even imagine how strong this bear was. Whenever she knocked me down, with her paw, her arm, I could just feel that strength in her arm.
Okay.
And they said she weighed between 200 and 230. Okay. But she was extremely strong. And I'm thinking, it's just fascinating to me because I don't know how something that eats just like bear, I don't even know what they eat. Berries? I don't know. Birds eat.
They're omnivores, so they eat everything. Everything.
Well, garbage, whatever. And I'm like, they're so strong. I'm like, I don't know how, holy man, was she strong.
Mother Nature has all the ingredients that the bears need out in the wild for them. They don't need all the crap we eat.
No. And, no, right. I mean, it was the weirdest thing when she, like I said, that paw, her arm, I could just feel that muscle and that strength and that arm. It was incredible. Like, and the whole time, like, I'm wondering, do I fight back? Like, I was afraid to, like, try to grab her or punch her because then she has my arm. You know what I mean? And I don't want to even make her even more mad than she already was. So I was, I did not fight back. I can tell you that. But anyway, that night, well, I guess anyway, what happened was, and, I felt bad, but the police officers came and, the mommy bear had moved her and her cubs weren't little. They were like 80 to 100 pounds. They were getting ready to leave mommy.
Those are 2-year-olds, so they'll stay with their mom for 2 years.
Yeah, they were pretty big. I mean, like I said, my neighbor has a ring camera, and she saw them in their garbage, caught them in their garbage, and you couldn't tell who was the mom and who wasn't.
Yeah,
they were
2-year-old cub then.
Yeah, they were pretty big. So what happened was they left the maple tree that was between my house, well, my neighbor's tree between our houses, and she took them to the neighbor behind us who has this, I don't know what it's called. I call it a tulip tree. It's like, I forget what it's called. Anyway, it's a huge tree. So they were in that tree, the mommy and the cubs. And what happened was the mom started to get aggressive they were looking for them,
Yep.
So unfortunately, they did have to shoot the mother. And they were able to relocate the cubs. And I feel so bad. Like, that's the one thing I feel bad about, that they had to shoot the mom. I mean, she was just doing her job, and and I was protecting my little cub, and she was protecting hers.
Yeah.
And but that I do. I feel bad. That's one thing I feel bad for. But then that people have said, I don't know if this is true, but like if they become aggressive, then they feel like they can, and then get away with that. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And then for them to have to relocate her, they would have to go quite a ways, because they can travel back to their territory, from what I understand.
Yeah.
And then the cubs they took up to the northern part of the state, a couple counties away. But ever since this happened, they have seen, I don't know how many sightings they've had, and it's not the same one, obviously, but another mommy bear and 3 cubs have been spotted a couple times. Now, whether it's 2 sets of, there's 2 different ones or whatever, but like around the area, they've had so many bear sightings.
Yep.
Around the area, it's nuts. And we're a small town, but we're an hour north of Pittsburgh, and like my husband helps out at a dairy farm, right? And they never see any bears out there. Like they're in farm, they have a farm, and that's like 15 minutes away or whatever. But like, and the thing is too, like, people have said to me and commented that that they watch out now when they go outside with their animals or with their dogs or whatever. They're definitely more aware, and a lot of people walk their dogs and all around, and they're definitely more aware. And
it's
like I said,
it's a good thing to have a healthy respect for them, and not a fear, but a good healthy respect.
Right. And yeah, I mean, people are like, are you afraid to go outside? And, we definitely look like, well, now I make my husband take them out at night. I'm no dummy. And, but yeah, like we have a flashlight, by the door. And so we pick them up, and, we look around outside before we set them down on the deck. And we've always gone out with them day or night, because he's so little, and you worry about raccoons or hawks or
coyotes,
stuff like that, or other dogs in the neighborhood, because we only have that little 3-foot fence around our around the yard, around the deck. So we've always gone out with them. And it was just like one of those things, wrong place, wrong time. But it's incredible, the people that have seen bears, or maybe they're reporting them now more. And it's odd because, I thought well, maybe it's all the building and the housing plans that they're building, between here and Pittsburgh.
Yep.
Driving them up. But then I had someone else say that to the north of us, and kind of in the middle of the north central, I guess, there's, mountains or whatever. And someone said that they're coming down to look for food.
Yeah, that's a big part.
And I thought
it was springtime, right? It was in March.
Yeah, it was March 5th. Yeah, March 5th.
March 5th, and that was this year, right?
Yes, it was just this March. Yeah, and like I said, like someone just spotted some the other day. Or it's just like not particularly my neighborhood and whatever, but in our county and around our, where we live. So, yeah. I
mean, is there any like messages you want to, leave people with?
Well, any messages I want to leave people with is just,
or advice.
Well, advice. Well, yeah, I would definitely, people go hiking in the woods or hunting I'm not outdoorsy. I'm more indoorsy. But I do enjoy nature. And, if I get a chance to hike in the woods, I would. However, now I'm going to have like bear bells and bear spray. And, yeah, definitely be more aware. Cause like I said, they're more afraid of you than, whatever, you'll scare them off, whatever. Well, that's not necessarily true. And, and I guess that would be my message to, just, if you're outside, just now you have to think about it. I never had to think about it before. And another message is that, sorry.
Nope, you're doing fine.
I really don't think I would have done as well as what I am doing if it wasn't for all the prayers, to be honest. I mean, it was just, like everybody that reached out, it was amazing. Like, I'm never not that nice.
The positive messages from prayer and other people praying for you can really help lift your spirits and help the recovery process. I believe, other people that I've talked to, it seems like people that come out of the woodwork, people you never even knew or thought were that nice and kind to come out and
exactly.
It definitely gives you a renewed hope of the world.
It really does. And my neighborhood really came together. My neighbors, I mean, I know my neighbors and, we've been here 32 years and whatever, but like, there's some that I still don't know. And they were bringing food, sending cards. People were dropping off cards and gift cards and, around the neighborhood. And it was just, people were very, very kind and it was just amazing. It really was. And like I said, this is just a minor setback for me. This I can get over. You have to remember that there's, people out there that have things that they can't get over. Yeah. And, you just have to remember that.
Well, thank you, Lee Ann.
Sure.
Facing limited selections of natural food sources, coming out of hibernation in the spring, black bears are learning the perks of urban and suburban life. Generally, wherever there's bear country, there's a potential to have problems with bears coming and getting into bird feeders. Bird feeders, garbage, compost, barbecues, fish smokers, and pet food lure bears into yards, porches, and even inside houses. With their exceptional climbing skills and a higher tolerance for people, Black bears are usually the culprits. Many wildlife officials say you should completely stop feeding birds if you live amongst black bears. If you choose to put out feeders, only set them up in the winter when bears are in hibernation. So the question, why do bears target bird feeders? Well, as smart, opportunistic omnivores with a diverse and flexible diet, hungry bears are drawn to feeders because they mimic natural food sources in easy-to-access containers. A standard 7-pound feeder is jam-packed with as much as 18,000 calories. With noses 5 times stronger than ours, bears can smell seeds and hummingbird feeder nectar from miles away. Once a bear has found a feeder, it will keep checking if it's filled with food. Bears are usually cautious around people, but that wariness can start to diminish if they start eating right next to us all the time. When bears stop seeing humans as a threat, they begin to act aggressively to protect their food source. The tragic accident that happened to Lee Ann wasn't her fault, as their bear had already been conditioned to associate people with food. Thankfully, a higher power was watching over her, otherwise the story would have had a grim ending. Bears are wild animals, and their behavior is totally unpredictable. We have to remember our urban sprawl is encroaching more into their normal range. We must learn to coexist and respect all wildlife. Remember to stay safe out there and enjoy all that Mother Nature has to offer. If you like what you heard today, click the subscribe button to hear more upcoming stories. If you or someone you know have a survival story you'd like to share, contact me at isurvivethewild@gmail.com.